Today on MuscleCar, how confident are you in your wrenching? We've got a transmission rebuild for you that would challenge any serious gearhead. Plus, we tune our Fox Body and take it for a ride and run into a little bit of track trouble. MuscleCar starts now.
Our Fox Body Mustang Dark Horse started life as a 6-cylinder clunker from a used car lot. We pulled out the stock V6 and installed a tubular K-member along with new coilover suspension. With a rebuilt pause unit, a new crate V8, exhaust, a stiffened subframe, enlightened interior, we burned in a cage and got after the bodywork. Then we hosed it down with a two-tone dark gray and flat black paint scheme.
Well, we got things mostly buttoned up and figured we'd take it out for a spin, see how she runs. Yeah, things didn't go so well.
The junkyard training we bought for it was making some noise and it wouldn't go into third gear. A part like this can be a heck of a deal, but it can also be a gamble.
Well, this round we rolled the dice and it came up snake eyes, but we do still have options. One of them is to rebuild our T5. We gave American Powertrain a call and they shipped us out a whole box worth of top shelf goodies. Now we're going to be changing out the gears to a different ratio. It's going to work a little bit better with the shorter gears that we put in the rear end. And check this out, solid billet keys. Now these little guys may not look like much, but the factory ones are hollow and get mashed up and hang up on you when you're banging gears.
Before we can throw all those goodies in it, we got to get this thing tore apart and see if we can diagnose its illness. With the light in it, I see bad things. Ooh, feel bad things. Ain't supposed to have that kind of stuff in it. Guess we found out why it's making noise. Oh, I missed. Well, we took it out because we knew it was broke. I guess we need to get it apart to see how bad it really is. I'll start by knocking out the roll pin that holds the shifter offset lever. Then I can start pulling the bolts to knock off the extension housing. The next thing I want to remove are the fasteners that hold down the case cover. Ooh, yeah. Well, pretty much found the reason why it wouldn't go into third. Primarily because there's not much of one left. Well, it is left, it's just welded on top of the other gear. Well, I imagine what happened is this thing chipped a tooth, then chipped many more teeth, and then more teeth, and then they slowly started going away. Diagnostic complete. Next, I'll pull off the shifter fork and main drive bearing retainer. See those? You don't want to drop those in there. With the input shaft out of the box, it's not long before I've got the output shaft out. And the bearing puller will free up the counter shaft. That's her, she broke down. Tear down wasn't all that bad, but looking on the inside, it's pretty terrible. You want to make sure to get all these metal shavings out of it because otherwise this rebuild is useless.
Coming up, Tommy connects the overdrive bone to the shifter bone as he puts parts back in our T5, plus a few tidbits on passing emissions tests.
Welcome back, guys. See that? Ooh, that's our Mustang's T5. We're knee-deep in rebuilding this bad boy after we found that somebody ate third gear plumb out of it. With the case emptied out and cleaned up, the first thing I'm going to do is install the new bearing onto the counter shaft using our Dake press. I'll tap the counter shaft bearing cup into the housing, slide the counter shaft into place, and then it's back to the press. I'll use a couple of pieces of aluminum stock to keep the load off of our bottom bearing while we press on the top one. Tap the race into place with a brass hammer. Now the main shaft has a lot of components and it can be a real handful. The key is to lay them out in the order they came off the shaft originally. And take your time installing the new components in the reverse order that the original ones came off of. It's time to install the reverse idler shaft and gear, followed by the roll pin. Then we can install our new bearing retainer. The reverse shifter fork will go in next, followed by the shaft spring and lever. Then I'll press the new bearing onto the input shaft and use some royal purple grease to hold the roller bearings in place. When you go to install the input shaft, put this notch side down so that it clears your counter shaft. With the input shaft in place, it's time for a new seal on the bearing retainer along with a new race. Now when you're installing the retainer, be sure to put this taller notch to the top. You may have noticed that I'm not using any sealer right now, but it's okay, that comes later. But go ahead and torque them down. A new race goes into place on the output shaft, and we'll install the reverse lever and apply some Loctite thread sealant to the pin to prevent any leaks. Don't forget the clip. We're hitting the home stretch now. It's time for the 5th gear cluster and shifting fork, followed by the speedo gear. Our kit from American Powertrain came with new pads to replace these old plastic worn ones. The new solid ones are designed to give you better engagement for better shifts. When using some RTV, you only want to use just enough. You get a little excessive with this stuff, it can squish out and fall into what you just got done repairing. It's not really necessary, but I like to use a sealer that's similar to the same color that I'm working on. Not any of that orange or anything like that. Because this right here, when you're done, will look like a far better repair than that multicolored stuff squishing out at all the edges. Before we can put the top plate on, you need to make sure the transmission is in neutral by both your selectors being in the middle and the input and output shaft being able to move in both directions. I'll use some anti-seize since we've got an aluminum housing and steel bolts. Then button it up nice and tight. A little more sealer and the tail housing can go on. I'll fasten it down and torque it to spec. Then I'll knock on the shifter lever. One of the last steps that we have to do is to measure the end play. What this is the amount of movement the main shaft has front to rear. What we're looking for is 0. So we're using a dial indicator to see what we have. First thing you want to do is shove the main shaft forward. Then you want to 0 out your dial gauge and then shove the main shaft rearward. All right, this gives us 32 thousandths. What that tells us is we need a 32 thousandth shim on this retainer to put it at 0. 0, and that's what we're looking for. Now, rebuilding a transmission may not be for everybody, but they're not near as mystical as people make them out to be. So if you got a few hand tools and some time on your hands, you might try rebuilding one. I'm all done here except for cleaning up. Y'all go find Rick. He's got something he needs to show you.
Still ahead, tune in for a clean bill of emissions health. Plus, she's not dark enough. More darkness. How about some window tint? Yeah, that's the ticket.
Hey guys, while Tommy's been freshening up her T5, I've been thrashing getting the interior on our Mustang here cleaned up. With time and a whole bunch of duplicolor, along with some carpet, old Dark Horse here, well, she ain't looking half bad. But we figured as long as we're going with the whole dark colors motif, we might as well finish out the look and tint the windows. Now, a bad tint job can make the best car look horrible, so we called the best. CJ and Michelle over here at Solar Solutions Window Tint in Franklin, Tennessee.
How are you, Rick?
How you doing, guys?
Doing well.
So what's the plan today?
We're going to black out the windows. We're going to make the Dark Horse darker than ever before. Getting the window clean and spotless is the key to having a clean window tint job. I actually cut the film about 1/8 of an inch bigger, let it hang down at the bottom. Once you slide it, have it overlap a little here and a little there. You cut the other side on the top. That way when you lay it on the inside, it'll go behind these gaskets and frames. You won't see any light gaps from the inside.
Shrinking the film to contour to the back glass. If you do it too fast, you'll cause creases in the glass or in the film itself. It just takes a little bit of time and everything turns out perfect.
All right, go across the top. I think you got it all there.
Michelle's got one last round of cleaning to make sure that the window will have good adhesion to the film. Then once it's ready, they'll pop it on, wet it down, squeegee the water off, and use some heat to smooth it out. Then the film's ready to be applied to the glass. The T-tops have some really bad old tint on them, and the best way to get it off is with steam and a razor blade. Oh man, CJ, you did it again, brother. Added the dark to the Dark Horse.
Glad I could help you out, man.
Well, sweet job, man. Let me see you out. Let's go.
From day one that we started this build, we wanted our Mustang to be streetable. Well, a lot of places require an emissions test. Problem is, most county and state facilities only tell you if you pass or fail. Well, this is Cliff, and he's gonna hook old Dark Horse up to the 5-gas analyzer. You ready to give it a shot and see if she'll pass?
Yeah, let's hook it up.
Cliff is the man to talk to about emissions at Express Oil Change in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. A lot of the time, places like this can cover a lot of ground when it comes to getting stuff taken care of on your car. These guys have the equipment to test our emissions and see if we'll make it past our local government testing facility. If you don't make it, there's some tweaks you can do to clean up your act.
The HC should be roughly 220 parts per million, and this car is showing about 169 parts per million. The CO2s are 0.24. They would pass.
Well, we pass or fail?
Well, you passed.
We did pass.
Yes.
Well, let's just say if we didn't pass. What's the most common fixes for one if you didn't pass?
On a carbureted car, maybe a smaller carburetor or possibly jetting it down. And an older cat, if you've got an older Cadillac converter, let's say you've got 200,000 miles on your car, you get it good and hot, it'll pass. Worn rings, worn engines, you always want a worn engine to be hot. If it's burning a lot of oil, it will not pass. They'll flag you on the lane if you got blue smoke coming out the tailpipes.
Well, that's good to know. If you don't pass first go around, you're not stuck with a car you can't drive. Well, man, I appreciate your time.
Yep.
We're gonna go further.
Stick around. Dark Horse goes for a drive, but they can't always go perfect, huh? You're watching MuscleCar. For a DVD copy of this episode, just go to PowerBlockTV.com and order your copy for just $5.95 plus shipping and handling. Start your own MuscleCar collection, delivered right to your door from the Power Block.
Old Dark Horse is ready. She looks mean. She sounds mean. She is mean. Sucker pulls pretty dang good. It's fun driving stuff like this that's kind of bare bones. Brings me back to my youth. Brings me back to high school, you know? A little rough around the edges, but stuff like this, that's what makes it cool. It ain't all spit shine. Well, it seems like the motor's running real good. Kind of taking it easy to break it in, but the motor seems like it's running great. Transmission is shifting real nice. She don't sound like a Lexus going down the road. Shoot, on a day like this, there's no good reason to leave the T-tops on. It does pretty well just rolling down the street, but let's put her on the strip at US 43 Dragway in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and do a few shakedown runs. Now, when you're at the track, safety is priority number one, and we kept that in mind when we installed these 5-point harnesses from Summit Racing. I'm just gonna drive it easy, kind of see what the car is gonna do. You never ever want to take a fresh car out to the track and hammer on it, because that's how people get hurt. So we're just gonna take it easy and see what it does. Looks like we're burning a little bit of oil somewhere. Yeah, we better take a look at it.
I think it is I put a cushion clamp holding the cable back out of the way from melting it against the header. It may be blowing it out from the oil pan there. I can't get on it.
Well, I've been short shifting it and shutting her down early so far. Now, I'd like to make a full-blown pass or two, but unless we can get that oil leak knocked out, it's not gonna happen.
I'm not real sure if we got the oil fixed on it or the oil leak on it. But it's still smoking quite a bit, but I don't know, it may be just the header burning all of it off.
The car feels pretty solid. We still got a little bit of an oil leak, actually a lot of an oil leak coming up from somewhere. We can't figure out what it is. We thought it was the pan. We cinched it down. It still blew oil out the back. We're gonna try to do one more pass with it. Grabbed second gear and tried matting it in second gear, and that's when it wanted to nose over on itself. By the time it caught, I was already almost at the top of second gear. Tried to grab third, and then I was going over the lights. So there's some tuning issues.
Yeah, with that oil leak too, man, we don't need to be taking a trip down the track with it, because you know that's gonna cause somebody getting hurt or even worse. Yeah, well, I guess we better load it up, get it back to the shop, you know, get it dialed in a little better, and maybe we come out again.
Okay, well, we found our leak. Apparently when we put in the oil dipstick, we got a little too aggressive and cracked the base of it. Build up a little bit of crankcase pressure, and all that oil comes through the crack and right onto the exhaust. So it happens, at least it's an easy fix. Well, hey, if you guys have any questions about anything on the show today, you can check it all out at powerblocktv.com. And don't worry, because this car will be back on the track, just not today. Because today, we're out of time. So until next time, we're out of here.